we're back at it again with some more native Android games to check out on our handheld devices such as the Anbernic RG505, Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, powkiddy X18S, and the AYN Odin Pro. This has been quite the popular series on my channel, and this time around we will check out 15 more Android games that are surprisingly not available on the Nintendo Switch and definitely worth checking out. There's going to be a nice variety of games featured here, with most having native controller support or just working really well with built-in gamepad mappers like those found on the Retroid Pocket and Odin Pro. The best part of this series for me is the potential to discover a game you might have never heard of before. So without further ado, I am Rob, the Retro Tech Dad, and let's dive right in. Yes, we are definitely starting this video with Vampire Survivors, and believe me, looks are deceiving here. The game is incredibly addictive, and despite its simple graphics and gameplay mechanics, this is the perfect example of a game not needing the latest and greatest in technology. The game has native support for our controllers and has not reached the Switch just yet. The game is also completely free to play and has very unintrusive ads that you can completely avoid. It's well worth a download, but I warn you that you might get hooked. "20 Minutes Till Dawn" is the perfect game to follow up with, since it's very similar to Vampire Survivors in mechanics, but in many ways I enjoy this game more than Vampire Survivors. The game has an enormous amount of content and unlockables that will have you playing it over and over again to perfect your run. If you're a fan of Vampire Survivors and haven't heard of this one, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a blast and has full controller support for the Android handhelds. It's available for only $2.99 on the Google Play Store and does not have a Nintendo Switch version. No stranger to my channel, game studio Pixelbyte is back in one of my Android gaming videos with Xenowerk, a game that surprisingly does not have a Nintendo Switch version. This is another great game from the studio with its top-down twin-stick shooter gameplay mechanics and really cool environments. The game looks great graphically and it's well worth checking out. The game is free to play and does not have intrusive pay mechanics that you can completely avoid. In addition, it has full controller support. Another Pixelbyte game, and this studio really is the mobile champion. Reckless Racing 3, as its name implies, is the third entry in the Reckless Racing franchise. I have always loved this series, and to this day it still remains one of the standout entries on mobile with its buy once and play forever. This game will only set you back $2.49, and if you are a fan at all of the top-down racing genre, please give this one a try. It's just a lot of fun, and as it is, there aren't many solid racers on Android, especially one that is a premium one-time purchase. The game has full controller support and surprisingly is not available for the Nintendo Switch. Yep, you guessed it, it's another Pixelbyte game. It is truly unbelievable how many games they have put out on mobile, with most of them being very solid purchases. Repulze is a futuristic racing game obviously inspired by the likes of F-Zero and Wipeout. This one looks great, moves fast, and has really fun and solid gameplay. It's available on the Play Store for a measly $1.49 and has not made its way to the Nintendo Switch eShop. Finally, a game that isn't from Pixelbyte, Ninja Arashi is a really visually slick indie platformer with great combat and RPG elements. The visuals are definitely a standout here, but the gameplay is rock solid. Unfortunately, this game does not have native controller support. However, it's very easy to map using the built-in gamepad mapper if you're using a device like the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus or AYN Odin Pro. Unfortunately for my Anbernic RG505 viewers, you will not be able to play this one unless you stick to the touchscreen. Ninja Arashi is a free-to-play game with the option to remove ads for a small fee of 99 cents. There is a sequel as well, and both have not made their way over to the Nintendo Switch. Here we have Suzy Cube from Noodle Cake, who, like Pixelbyte, have done quite a bit in the mobile space. This studio is responsible for games like Alto's Adventure. Anyways, Suzy Cube is a great 3D platformer game and very much reminds me of something like Super Mario 3D Land. For whatever reason, this one does not have native controller support, but luckily it is very easy to set up gamepad mapping with. Again, our RG505 friends will have to resort to touchscreen or use a third-party mapping software like the Mantis Gamepad Pro, which can be very hit or miss. By the way, for Suzy Cube, you'll want to make sure to go into the settings and enable the Anchor Virtual Joystick setting, since that seems to correct some weirdness with the controls. Suzy Cube is available as part of the Google Play Pass or for a one-time purchase of $3.99 and is not available on the Nintendo Switch. First Squadron is a fairly recent release and one that is super unknown on the Play Store, and I came across it by pure luck browsing new releases. First Squadron is a space shooter game and is basically a clone of Star Fox with its own cool retro wave visual style. It's a pretty fun little game to run through, with the gameplay obviously reminiscent of Star Fox, including boss battles. The game has full controller support, so it's a perfect fit for our Android handheld devices. This one comes in at $4.49, and I very much support the pay once and keep forever model. This one has not made its way to Nintendo Switch. Next we have Does Not Commute from Studio Mediocre, and trust me, this game is definitely not mediocre. This one has such an interesting premise. You basically take control of multiple people assuming their daily lives driving around town, and as you take control and move on to the next person, you find yourself suddenly in the middle of this chaotic traffic disaster. It's almost hard to explain fully without trying it for yourself, and luckily the game is free to play, but the paid option, which is only $2.99, will allow you to enable checkpoints. It's a fun little game to try out with great charming visuals, and the soundtrack is fantastic as well. Does Not Commute offers controller support, and this one never made its way to Nintendo Switch. Leo's Fortune has appeared on my channel in the past, but never in one of my game recommendation videos. This one has been around in the mobile space for a very long time now, but it's still a very solid 2D platformer with awesome visuals. I was very surprised that this one never made its way to the Nintendo Switch. Luckily, the game has full controller support and works great with our Android handhelds. This one is available as part of the Google Play subscription or for a one-time purchase of $4.99. Now here's something a little different. Rogue Hearts is a roguelike dungeon crawler with a nice mix of 2D art and 3D dungeon crawling goodness. This game does not have controller support, but maps surprisingly well, and so I decided to include it on this list. It's also a very cheap purchase at 99 cents, and well worth trying it out if you're looking for something a little bit more in-depth and meaty. And as you guessed it, this one is not available on the Nintendo Switch. Okay, maybe this one is a bit of a stretch, since after all, our Android handheld devices are positioned as emulation devices, and you can simply load up Castlevania Symphony of the Night for PS1 and call it a day. However, it is cool to talk about this game being available natively on Android, and surprisingly, this is not for sale on the Nintendo Switch. So outside of hacking your Switch, there is no way to play Symphony of the Night on there. Anyways, Symphony of the Night is available on the Play Store for just $2.99 and has full controller support. If you've never played this game, there's no better time than now. It's one of the finest games ever made. This one is a pretty old mobile port and is a very faithful port of the same game that was on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Mickey's Castle of Illusion is an awesome reimagining of the original Sega Genesis game. Now, I've had this one in my Android library for a while now, and for some reason I thought it had native controller support, but it doesn't seem to. However, it's very easy to map controls to this one as well, and this is why it's so critical that the Android handhelds have some type of gamepad mapping built in. Unfortunately, RG505 viewers will have to deal with touchscreen or third-party alternatives. The game looks great and plays really well. It's available on the Play Store for only $4.99 and never received a port to the Nintendo Switch. Here is another very well-known franchise. Street Fighter 4 actually received a mobile version many years ago and then got re-released as Champion Edition for mobile more recently. This explains why the graphics are pretty mediocre in this version. However, the gameplay is very solid and it's still a fun fighting game of a well-known franchise, and that's something that's not all too common on the mobile platform. Despite the 3DS having a version of Street Fighter 4, the Nintendo Switch never got any version. The game is available to play for free but has limited content, but for a $4.99 fee, you can unlock the Champion Pack to get the full game. There is full controller support during matches. And finally, I saved this game for last because it's easily my favorite game out of all the entries and one of the highest quality premium games that you will experience on Android and anywhere really. The Wolf Among Us is not a new game by any means and actually came out nearly 10 years ago and comes to us from defunct but now not defunct studio Telltale Games. The Wolf Among Us is based on the Fables comic book series and you play as Bigby Wolf, the sheriff of Fabletown. The entire world revolves around characters from popular fairy tales and folklore, but in a very mature setting. The story is fantastic in this one, and I've played this through completion multiple times on multiple platforms. If you are familiar with other Telltale games, the gameplay style is similar. The Android version is a solid port and runs very well with controller support. The first episode is available for free, with the remaining 4 available as part of a $15 season pass or $5 per episode. Surprisingly, this Telltale game never received a Switch port. So there you have it, another 15 games worth checking out on your Android handheld device. It's truly surprising the amount of content that is available natively on Android and really is such an overlooked feature of these devices. Now with this latest video, I believe we are at nearly 60 different native Android games from ports to fan games, and I highly recommend checking those videos out if you haven't done so already. But amazingly, we're not done yet and there's still plenty more to explore, and I will be back with some more Android game recommendations. If there are any games that I might have missed, please do share them down below. The more attention we give to these higher quality games, the better. And with that, it's time to finish up here. I am the Retro Tech Dad, and I thank you so much for watching.